All right, hey guys, how are you? Welcome to our class on imperialism in East Asia. And for today, we're going to talk about um, how imperialism occurred in China and Japan. So we'll try to answer the question, how was China imperialized and how did Japan grow into an imperial state? All right, so let's begin. Okay, so for today's class goals, we're going to look into three things, and I'll ask you to try and do these three things. So today, um, while you're watching the video, I want you to hold with you your books so that because I'll be referring to it every now and then. So turn the page with me whenever I say turn the page. All right. So the first thing I need you to do is to do some close reading. Find out how the Westerners interacted with China and Japan, and then analyze how China and Japan responded to the Westerners. And then later on, compare and contrast the impact of industrialization and imperialism on China and Japan. All right, so let's take a look. Just to set things straight, here is our context. So we're looking at two countries in East Asia, China and Japan. We're looking at the Qing dynasty from 1644 to 1911 and the Tokugawa shogunate in 1600 to 1868 in Japan. This was led by the Manchurians, which is northeast of China or north of Korea. And here, the Manchus were governed right after the Ming dynasty fell. So here in Japan, the Tokugawa shogunate was established by Tokugawa Ieyasu, who is the strongest shogun in the entire Japan. And then these are things that we're going to be talking about quite frequently as we go through the entire presentation. So here we'll talk about spheres of influence, the Opium War, the Taiping Rebellion, the Boxer Rebellion, Commodore Matthew C. Perry, Empress Dowager Cixi, Emperor Mutsuhito, sorry, there's an error there, that's a U, and then the Meiji Restoration. All right, so now let's take a look at China. This is the Qing dynasty map of China. So if you take a look at it, there's a big chunk here that looks very much Russian today. And then here's Korea, and here is India, your Himalayan region, Burma, Siam. All right, present day Thailand. Okay, so let's take a look. Oh wait, sorry, no, Siam is not Thailand. Siam is Myanmar. Or hold on. Yeah, okay. So, China was led by the Qing dynasty in 1644, and during this time, the Qing promoted agriculture. And because agriculture provides food for the people, this also provided harvest and um, produce, which ended up doubling the population. So from 300 million, it ended up becoming more than that. So in the 1800s, however, the Qing dynasty ended up weakening because during this time, the age of exploration has already flourished and everyone wanted to, cover the entire world or at least conquer it, which Britain had already done with India. So you've got British forces surrounding the entire country of India. And then everyone wanted to take a look at what China could offer because, hello, this was part of the Silk Road. Okay, so the Qing dynasty weakened because European traders were putting pressure on China to trade. Now, the Qing didn't want to trade. Why do you think they didn't want to trade? So if you take a look at your book, the reason why they didn't want to trade was because they felt that they were also very, what's the word? Um, they were better. They felt that they didn't need European influences. So if you take a look at page 374, um, they also sort of rejected the Christian religion. They were happy with being Confucian. They were happy with being Taoist. They were happy with all that. And they felt that their culture was above European culture. So what they did, they gave way just a little, restricting trade and limiting it, only allowing the port city of Canton, which is present day Guangzhou, right there. Okay, so by restricting trade, the government ended up weakening because it failed to modernize as fast as other countries. So if you recall in your debate, this is one of the arguments. The argument was um, because you are not exposed to other cultures and to other technologies, you don't grow, right, as a country. And so they didn't want to be influenced by Westerners because they felt that they were better in terms of their culture and whatever they were currently doing. Okay, but guess what? Britain ended up inching its way into China, care of opium. So if you take a look at page 375, you have there what looks like dried opium poppy sap, right? That's what it looks like. It comes from the poppy flower, which is red, that is black in the middle, and then the poppy seeds, which a lot of bakers would use in their food, in their pastries. That one, the resin, the sap, ends up becoming like a drug. Now, this is Britain's product. Then this particular plant grows in India a lot, and they realized it was a drug. At first, if you look at the trade, the Qing did not pay attention to the trade issues or the growth of the opium trade within China. They didn't see it as a problem until it did become a problem, because it ended up becoming abused. So there were so many people who were not being productive anymore. They ended up going to these areas where just to get high, and so they established something called an opium ban in 1839, wherein the Qing dynasty ended up banning the use and the import of opium. Because this was banned, guess what? Britain ended up getting really antsy. They didn't like it. And so this led to the First Opium War, from 1839 to 1842. Now, if we were to take a look at it, there's a whole paragraph here on page 376 that sort of sparked the entire war. And this is it sparked with a ship. Something happened on the Lorca Arrow, which is a British-owned ship, and the Chinese didn't want to forgive whatever was happening there, and the British wanted to retaliate, and eventually they ended up crushing the entire army that event started, and it ended up happening over 4 years, from 1839 to 1842. And so the Qing ended up having to agree with something that was very unfair to them. And this was called the Treaty of Nanking. And they had to sign it, given knowing that all the demands were unfair. Number one, they had to expand the ports. So aside from Canton, it had to have 5 more ports open to trade. Hong Kong ends up becoming a British colony. They had to agree to low tariff, which is low tax for imports, and they were fined of 21 million ounces of silver, which is a lot of money. And Britain ended up becoming the most favored nation, rightfully so, because they were the ones who defeated the Chinese. And so anytime that there's a decision to be made and there was a choice, Britain would always have to be chosen because this was the status that was given to them, the most favored nation status, or extraterritoriality, in your book on page 376. So, because this was happening in China, there was a growing dissatisfaction. The Chinese failed to fulfill the terms of the treaty, of improving trade and diplomatic relations, and they ended up doing a series of mini rebellions. Okay. And so the British goals were not met. They wanted to legalize the opium trade, expand trade, open all of China to British merchants, and exempting foreign imports from internal transit duties. Now, because Britain wanted this so badly, they ended up getting the alliances of other countries, of other European countries, and even America. So the French, the Russians, and the Americans ended up joining Britain, thereby defeating the Qing's forces and further weakening the country's government and economy. This led to the Second Opium War, which happened in 1856 to 1860, which is another 4 years. So here, let's take a look at the different spheres of influence, which are areas that each foreign country controls economically. In the northern part of China, you have Russia as the sphere of influence. The purple areas are controlled by Japan. So an Asian country ends up having a sphere of influence over China. The blue part is Germany. The pink part is Britain, and the green part is France. Now, if you were to take a look at this area, how did Britain end up occupying or controlling this area economically, or having the sphere of influence over this area? So if we were to look at geography, you've got this entire river, the Changjiang, also known as the Yangtze River, allowing that economy to grow. And then you have this area over here, which is the Great Wall, which sort of limited Russia's, over influence over China. And then, if we look at this question, obviously there are the two nations that control the largest spheres are Russia and Britain, right? Okay. So there, it's good to note. So these are the red dots are the treaty ports that were given to them. So Vladivostok is there, Port Arthur, Beijing, Weihai, Changdao, Shanghai, Nanjing, Wuchang, Ningbo, Fuzhou, Amoy, Hong Kong, of course, Macau, and Canton over there. Alright, so let's take a look at three things that happened. The Taiping Rebellion. The Taiping rebels wanted to push out all European influence. They were very angry with what was going on, and they wanted them out. This occurred for about, 14 years, and nothing much came out of it. However, in 1899, U.S. Secretary of State John Hay suggested that all countries will have equal economic rights in China. And in 1899 to 1901, together with the last Qing Empress Cixi, the Boxers wanted to eliminate all European powers, and the European spheres of influence ended up uniting to crush the Boxers. Now, going back here, this open door policy, which was established by U.S. Secretary of State John Hay, ended up becoming quite interesting because if we look back at the map, America has no sphere of influence here. They just simply wanted to trade with China and wanted to keep that door to trade open. And they wanted equal economic rights, not just anything based on the spheres of influence. They wanted equal rights. Of course, that was sort of impossible. But here, if we look at what happened to the Boxers, you can call them, what's the word? They were, in a way, just retaliating. They just really didn't like that much European influence over what was going on with their culture. And the first thing that came to mind was they didn't like that Christianity was gaining some ground in Chinese culture. And so the Boxers, so they are called, wanted to get rid of all that European influence in their country. But they were defeated. Okay, let's stop here, and then we'll talk about this in another video.